Hey everyone, so this is the iPhone 15 Pro, and it's late 2025. The brand new iPhone 17 series is officially out, and I think this 2-year-old phone might actually be one of the smartest iPhones you can buy right now. Now, this isn't just gonna be a spec sheet review. This phone in this natural titanium color, this was my main phone. My daily driver for almost 2 years. I used it for everything from just the basic stuff to moderate work all the way to heavy gaming, right up until I upgraded to the new 17 Pro. So today I want to talk about what it's really like to use 2 years later. How has this titanium design held up? How does the battery feel? How does it handle the brand new iOS 26? And the most important question, should you still buy one? We're gonna cover all of it. The design, the performance, those gaming thermals, the camera, and maybe most importantly, who this phone is perfect for and who should probably, look at something else. It's kind of funny, when this phone was released back in 2023, it felt like a big deal. Not just another small iterative update, It was the first one with this new aerospace grade titanium design, and it felt so different in the hand, so much lighter than the old 14 Pro. It was the first Pro phone to get the action button, which, yeah, I'll be honest, I still mostly just used to open the camera. And it was the first iPhone that could actually play real deal console games. I mean, Resident Evil, Assassin's Creed on a phone. That was just insane. And it meant the raw performance was a huge leap. Oh, and it finally brought USB-C to the iPhone, but not just any USB-C. And that's actually super important for 2025. We'll get back to that. So this design, I went with the natural titanium, and you can see it's held up just great. The color is awesome. It doesn't really show fingerprints like those old glossy stainless steel models. But the biggest thing for me, honestly, is the feel. The number one thing coming from the 14 Pro, this was so much lighter. I mean, the 14 Pro was 206 grams. This is only 187. It doesn't sound like a huge difference, but in your hand, all day, every day, you feel it. The new contoured edges helped a lot with that too. And then there's the display. It's a 6.1-inch ProMotion display. And 2 years later, it's basically perfect. It's the same 120 Hz adaptive refresh rate, still gets incredibly bright outdoors, and that always-on display is, well, it's a Pro iPhone screen. It's just as good today as it was the day I got it. Okay, let's talk about the engine in this thing. The A17 Pro chip, 2 years later, how does it hold up? For day-to-day stuff, it's flawless. I'm running the latest iOS 26, and apps open instantly. Swiping between apps is totally smooth. There is zero lag. I actually ran Geekbench 6 on it right before filming this, and I got 2,787 for single core and 7,196 for multi-core. Which, I checked this against the public averages, and that's exactly where it should be. So even after 2 years, this chip is still a powerhouse. But here's the real secret. The real reason this phone still feels so good. It's not just the chip, it's the RAM. This was the first iPhone with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and I'm telling you, that's the whole story. I'm always re-reviewing older phones, and on my 14 Pro or 13 Pro, with 6 gigs of RAM, my apps are constantly reloading in the background. I swipe back to an app and poof, it's gone. It has to relaunch. It drives me crazy. With 8 gigs on this 15 Pro, that just doesn't happen. The multitasking is so much better. And here's the kicker. The brand new base model iPhone 17, it also has 8 gigs of RAM. So by Apple's own 2025 standards, this 2-year-old iPhone 15 Pro is still perfectly relevant. That's a huge deal for longevity. And then there's gaming. Yes, it can play those AAA console games, and yes, it gets hot. When this phone first launched, people were really worried about this. And look, the analysts were probably right. It seems to be a compromise in the thermal design to get that lighter titanium weight. But in my 2 years with it, it just gets warm. Like if I'm playing a heavy mobile game for a long session, it definitely gets warm, sometimes hot. But on my phone, it's not that annoying hot that makes you want to drop it. It's manageable. But it's definitely something to be aware of if you're a super heavy gamer. Alright, let's talk about the big one. Battery life. This is always the first thing to go, right? So I first started using this phone in November 2023. As of today, my battery health is at 86% and the cycle count is 480. And I know seeing that number drop, it's stressful, but I did some digging and that's pretty normal. I'm seeing reports all over the forums of people with similar or even worse health at fewer cycles. Apple's own standard is to be at 80%, but what does that mean in the real world? For me, if I'm having a really busy day at work and I'm not on my phone constantly, just calls, social media, some work apps, I can get through a whole day easy. But if I'm using it constantly, if I'm filming or playing games or just browsing a lot, I'm definitely charging it twice a day. Now the camera system on the 15 Pro, it's still so good. I mean, it's still a pro camera. The big deal, and something I still love, is that this was the first iPhone to default to 24 megapixel photos. The iPhone 14 Pro, it had a 48 megapixel sensor, but it would always bin it down to 12 megapixels unless you shot in ProRAW. This 24 megapixel default, it's the sweet spot. You get so much more detail when you crop in, but you don't get the massive file sizes of a 48 megapixel ProRAW shot. I also love that you can tap the 1x button to switch between the 24mm, 28mm focal lengths. I use that all the time. It's got the solid 3x optical telephoto zoom, which is great. The 15 Pro Max, of course, got that new 5-back zoom, and we're gonna come back to that because it's important for my final recommendation. And for a video, this is where Apple introduced log video recording. For a video person, that was a game changer. And it's still here, and it's still a pro feature. So this is running the newest iOS 26, and I've got to say, I really appreciate the upgrade. It's got this new liquid glass design, and it just makes everything feel more fluid. The new animations are great. It honestly makes the old design, like on iOS 18, feel really, well, old. Now, when I first updated, yeah, I did notice the phone was like more warm for a day or two, but I think this phone was just, re-indexing all the system files and our personal files to settle in. That's pretty normal. After a big update, it settled down after a couple of days and it's been fine ever since. And let's talk about Apple Intelligence. I originally thought this phone might not get it, but it does. It's actually the oldest phone that supports Apple Intelligence, and that's almost certainly because of that A17 Pro chip and the 8 gigabytes of RAM we talked about. But honestly, for me, it's not a huge deal. I mean, it's nice to have, but Apple Intelligence by now it's still on like an early beta. I usually just end up using alternatives that are just more powerful. Like I'm still opening up Gemini or ChatGPT for any heavy lifting. So yeah, it's great that the 15 Pro has it, but it's not the reason I use the phone, and it's not the reason you should buy it. But look, it's not a perfect phone. After 2 years, there are a couple of things you really need to consider. First, that 3x zoom. It's good, but it's not the 5x zoom that was on the Pro Max and is now on newer Pro models. If you're someone who really values that long-range zoom, you can feel a little limited here. And the heat, while I said it's manageable for me, that was a real issue for some people. The thermal design, it was a compromise for the lighter weight. The newer iPhone 16 Pro, for example, has a much better thermal system. So if you're a really heavy gamer, that's something to think about. So here we are in late 2025. Should you buy or upgrade to an iPhone 15 Pro? Honestly, for most people, yes. I think this is an incredible buy right now. The price has dropped and it's now a total steal. You can find these on the refurbished market for like $500 to $600. And for that price, you're getting a titanium phone, a 120Hz ProMotion display, a pro-level camera system, and that 8 gigabytes of RAM that, like we said, keeps it just as relevant as a new iPhone 17 base model. And here's the biggest secret, that USB-C port. This phone has the fast USB 3 port, which is 10 gigabits per second. The base model 15 and even the new base model 17 are still stuck on slow USB 2 speeds. That's 480 megabits per second. This 15 Pro is 20 times faster. If you ever shoot big video files or transfer anything, this is a massive pro feature that you still can't get on a new base model. So who is this for? If you're upgrading from an iPhone 11, 12, or 13, this is a monumental upgrade. You will love it. If you want a pro iPhone but you're on a budget, this is my #1 recommendation. But If you are considering the 15 Pro Max just to get that 5x zoom, I'd like to recommend you do something else. Look for a used iPhone 16 Pro instead. Here's why. The 16 Pro it's a more mature version of this phone. It has better thermals than the 15 Pro. It got the 5x telephoto zoom, so you get the Max's camera in a smaller body, and it has a slightly bigger 6.3-inch display with thinner bezels. It's the perfect sweet spot. But look, if you just want an amazing, premium, compact, and still powerful phone, that's a total value, the 15 Pro is, 2 years later, still an absolute champ. So yeah, that's my take. Let me know what you all think down in the comments. Are you still using a 15 Pro? How's your battery holding up? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.